Okay, guys, so today we're going to learn about how to make a data table in Google Sheets. I'm going to show you some of the tricks into doing it. Now, you can find Google Sheets in a bunch of different ways. You can go to the waffle in your email, the 9 little dots that make the little square there, and you're looking for this little icon. It's a green icon. There's not too many other green icons common for Google, the Google Suite. And when you click on it, it'll open up like this, and it'll show you a blank Google Sheet. The first thing I'm going to do is give this thing a title. So this one is called the average lab. And I'm going to apply some things to the entire data table. So normally when it opens up, it looks like this. And you'll see that you can make a few changes that you're going to, it's kind of like systematic changes, things that you want to apply to the entire data table. So I'm going to click up here in the upper left so that I can highlight the entire table. And the things that I want to pick is, first of all, the justification. So all the stuff you're going to want to use is going to be basically in this little cluster right here, and then these two buttons right here. Other than that, there's really not too much you need to worry about. I mean, you can change fonts or the colors or things like that. It's not a big deal to me. But again, we want to make sure it looks professional. We want people to listen to us, and we don't want them to feel like what we're presenting is childish. And so we want it to be clear. This is a serious thing. Like this is a thing that I want people to understand. And so to make it look as professional as possible, and also to make it easy to read, I'm going to choose to make it center justified. So I want it to be not to the left, not to the right. I want it to be right in the middle, but not only left to right, but also top to bottom. So I'm going to click the vertical alignment also. And so now everything will be left to right in the middle and top to bottom in the middle. Now, while we're at it, I'm going to also do this one, which is called merging cell. Oh, sorry, not merging cells. We're going to do this one over here. I'm sorry. We're going to do text wrapping. And the advantage of doing the text wrapping is that if for some reason what you type is not going to fit in the box, it will automatically force it to show up on the next line down, and it'll readjust the size of the cells automatically for us. Now, I don't know in advance if I'm going to have an issue with that. But if I do have an issue, I don't want to go afterwards and have to fix each little individual cell. I just want all of them to text wrap. If anybody goes longer than the edge of the cell, I want them to wrap around to the bottom of the cell. Okay, so now I'm going to anticipate that this is not going to be big enough, and that I want the cells to be, the width is okay, but I don't like the height. So while it's still highlighted and still blue like this, I'm going to come over between any number. It doesn't matter which one that I choose. Any one of these numbers, and click on it and drag it. I'm going to make it about double the size. So I'm going to go down to about the bottom of this one. And you'll see that all the cells increase their size. Now that I see the height now, I do feel like it's maybe not quite as wide the cell that I want it to be. So I'm going to make it just a pinch wider. But I don't need to make it absurdly large. And at the end, I'll go back and readjust. So if it turns out that something just wasn't right, or I feel like, it doesn't look good, I'll go back and I'll make those fixes afterwards. Other than that, there's really no other thing that I need to apply to every cell. So I'm going to go ahead and click off. And normally you could start up here in the upper corner. It doesn't really matter though. This is an infinite spreadsheet. So if I scroll down and you look at those numbers on the left, I am already in the thousands almost, right? So this is an infinite spreadsheet. You can go past 1,000 if you want to. So this is like a workspace. This isn't the finished product. This is a thing that's going to get copied and pasted out of here, and then it's going to get put into a Word document or a Google Doc. So today we're just focused on how do you get this thing organized in Sheets. So to make it easier for you to see, I'm going to start down here just so that we won't be up against the borders of the numbers. And for this particular data table, we have essentially 4 things that need to be recorded in the data table: the name of the object, the distance that it traveled, how much time it took to travel that distance, and then finally it'll be the average speed. So the first thing that I'm going to do is put object. And that's a really easy one because I don't need to give any units for it. It's just the name of the object. And so you'll see that it's in the center now. That's exactly what I wanted to see. It's going to look so much easier to read and just look so much more professional. We also have distance. And now as we get to the actual physics properties, we need to be really careful and record the units. Now, what's essentially happening with the data table, the way this works, is that the data table uses something called the distributive property. And you've probably heard that in your math classes. So the distributive property says that, like, if I put something in parentheses and I put something right outside of it and I said multiply this times this thing in parentheses, it means to everything that's inside the parentheses. And that's the exact same logic under which data tables work. So the way they work is they use the distributive property. I list the title of the unit and the units for it, and then I never list it again. I do not list the units in the data table. It looks terrible, and it's going to prevent this program from being able to do the math. This will do a lot of the work for you unless you put handcuffs on it by putting letters after numbers. You should not be putting letters after numbers. There should be no units after the numbers. It goes one time at the top, and that's it. It just goes one time at the top, and then this applies to everything that comes underneath it, just like the word object applies to everything that comes under it. And the next column is going to be time, and that's going to be in seconds. And that also is all times, and all the times will be in seconds. So I don't need to put seconds. It's redundant. It's you're taking away the conciseness and also making it impossible for this program to do the work for you. The last thing then is average speed, and that would be in, sorry, meters second. You can see it automatically text wrapped. Now, we would not have done that except for the fact that I actually told it to text wrap the whole data table. If that ever came up, I wanted to text wrap. Now, I knew that it was going to force this cell to go wider if it did text wrap. So that's why I made the cells a little bit wider, about twice as wide, or twice as tall, I should say, so that in case something had to get text wrapped, there would be space there for me to do it. In case it was just a little too narrow, it would just wrap underneath it. So the names of our objects are the battery car, army car, and the flywheel car. And now you are asked to do 2 measurements of your own. So you could do, for example, walking, and let's say walking backwards. You can see that also text wrapped. So it was, I don't know if it looked like it was going to fit. It was pretty close to me, but it automatically knew to do that because I told it that I wanted it to text wrap everything. Okay, so now I have all of the labels in, and now I want to start putting in some of the numbers. So let me show you a few of the really cool tricks. So if I put in our distance, which was 3.0 meters for this guy, for this particular lab, it took away the zeros, but I wanted to show the zeros because I want to show the precision of my measurement. 3 is very crude. That's a very crude measurement. If somebody told me I just measured 3 meters, I would not be impressed by that. That is a very low level of measurement for a device that could get you to 3 places after the decimal. So I put in the 2 places, and now I want to force this program to show me those 2 places. But I don't want to have to do it in every cell. That's going to be tedious. So I'm going to highlight all the cells where that number is going to be, where I want this number to have 2 places after the decimal. And I'm going to go up to these buttons here, and I can increase or I can decrease the number of places that it will show me. And so I'm going to bring that back down to 2 places after the decimal. Okay, now I don't want to type 3.00, 3.00, 3.0. That's tedious also. So I'm going to let Google Sheets do the work for me. I'm going to come down and get this little blue square. You should see when you put your regular cursor over the top of it that it turns into a little plus sign. And when you click on it and drag it, you're telling Google Sheets, I want this to be in every cell. I want you to put this number into every cell. There was no formula or equation. It was just simply a number. So Excel is just going to copy that number for you. So that's a nice little trick to if you have to repeat the data. Don't put arrows. That looks terrible and childish. And don't merge it into one big cell. That's also really a terrible idea. Because, for example, you would read battery car, and then the number 3.0 would be down here in the middle of the cell. If I merged all these cells, that's another common thing that people want to do. And you can merge cells in some situations, but this isn't the place to do it. Just repeat the number so that I can read across and get all the information for that vehicle, and not read across and then jump down and then come back up and read across and jump back down and come back up, or read across and go up and get the number and come back down. I want this number to appear on every row so a person could just focus on one vehicle if they chose to do so. I'm just going to make up some numbers. I know that battery car was really slow. I'm going to say 6.79. For the next one, move out of the way, let's say 3.45, say 2.99, and let's say, no, let's actually do 5.5. Again, look how easy it is to see the numbers, right? I'm not comparing letters, right? I don't need the seconds over here because I'm not comparing what units they're in. I know these are all in the same units. What I want to compare is the numbers. I want to see that, for example, this number is about half as big as this number, or about half as big as this number too. I want to be able to focus on the data, and I already know what the units are. I don't need to be reminded. Seconds. Very tedious, and you would get deducted when you take the basic skill quiz on data tables because it's bad form. That's not the way it's done in any scientific context. So now the last thing, I don't know what your walking times are, but you'll add your walking times. And now I want to calculate. Now you could obviously just use a calculator and make the calculation, but watch this. I'm going to let Google Sheets do all the calculations for me. I just need to tell it which numbers is it supposed to be working with. So in this case, what I want is to divide the distance by the time to get the average speed. So I want the stuff that's in column D is going to get divided by the data that's in column E. So if you look at this first cell, we got to figure out what this first cell is. This cell is D3. So I'm in cell D3 right now. And the time is in E3. So I'm going to go ahead and put my equation in. And all equations start with an equal sign. It's a super easy thing to remember. And what I want to tell it is I want the cell D3 divided by cell E3. I'm going to hit enter. The speed is calculated. Now what I want to do is I want to tell Google Sheets to apply that formula to all these cells. I don't want it to make the same calculation. I want it to use these numbers with that formula. So I'm going to click back on the cell. I'm going to come back down to that little blue square. I'm going to click and drag it. And it's going to calculate all the speeds for me. And you can see they're all different. And the reason for that is because it used these numbers. So if you look back in that original cell, it says D3 divided by E3. It's up here in the bar. Now, if I click on the next one, it's going to say D4 divided by E4, and then it's going to say D5 divided by E5, and then D6 divided by E6. It knew what to do. It applied the formula, but it adjusted it for the next one down. And so it's going to do all the calculations for you. Now, once you have all that done, you're basically there, but the problem is that if you highlight this right now, and you right-click and you copy it, and then you go to paste it in something, all you're going to see is the little light gray lines. But if you were to print that paper out, those lines would not appear. So those are the edges of the cells. They're not borders. They're just the boundaries of the cells. They're just showing you where the boundary of the cell is, but it is not a border and it will not show up in any printout. So I want to put in borders. That's the final thing to do. Put in the borders, and that's right here in that little cluster. And you can find it very easily by just going over these guys and just clicking to see what they do. So text wrapping, vertical align, horizontal alignment, merging cells. We'll talk about that when we get to more complicated data tables. And then the borders. All I'm going to do is click on the borders button, and I'm going to say all borders. Now this thing is ready to go. I can right click and copy it, and I can go and paste it into any document or slide or any kind of thing that I want to for either my presentation or for my lab report. And that's how you do it.